we go. Round 16. This is the last round of Pro Tour Ravnica. Return to Ravnica. Shot Miller with Zach Hill in the booth. We're going to see if we can watch history happen as Stanislav Cifka goes for the 16-0 versus Kelvin Chu.
And Kelvin Chu very quickly cracking a verdant catacombs, getting up a forest. If he has a turn 1 Glistener Elf, he's going to be doing exactly what he wants to be doing here, which is just putting a clock on as quick as they can. These two decks not really interacting with each other very much.
Not at all. And there is Noble Hierarch, not a Glistener Elf, but still a great turn 1 play.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I mean, we see a Might of Old Krosa. We see a Groundswell. I think we see another Might of Old Krosa. So that's 13 damage right there. But it's not infect damage.
No,
so.
it's just regular damage. Oh, pick up a Sleight of Hand over for Chu, and over on Cifka's side, there is a Chromatic Star.
So we could see a turn 3 kill. If the Sleight of Hand reveals a Blighted Agent, a Glistener Elf, or a, well, I guess an Inkmoth Nexus doesn't do it because he can't play it. But right. If this Sleight of Hand reveals an Infect creature, he's got more than enough to just end the game on the 3rd turn.
Yeah, we were actually chatting a little bit about this earlier because not only is there a 16-0 for this Pro Tour at stake, Cifka's got a 23-game win streak on the line,
which is unbelievable.
And if there's a deck that can at least steal a game, it's definitely this Infect deck.
All right, we see Vines of Vastwood, Noble Hierarch. You almost want to take the Vines of Vastwood and attack with Noble Hierarch. You're getting close to just doing straight up 20 points of damage right there.
Well, I think the Noble Hierarch is probably because there's not enough mana, right?
Oh, sure. Oh, okay.
Oh, the game streak isn't still going. He lost the game 2 rounds ago.
All right, so we're attacking for 2 with the Hierarch.
So that's going to put Cifka down to 18, and Cifka's probably wondering, this isn't Infect damage.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
What's happening? Cifka kind of laughing.
And apparently, if Kelvin Chu gets a win here, he could be in the top 8.
Oh, for sure. We've been talking a lot about the streak right now, but I mean, Chu, playing for high stakes right now. This will be his first top 8 of a Pro Tour, I think, but he's been around a long time, multiple national champions, so this is a high stake match on both accounts.
All right, so a Sleight of Hand over for Cifka.
I'm so glad I do not have to play Cifka's deck.
You mean be the person piloting the deck?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that happens all in one turn, and it seems pretty easy to not do it as optimally as possible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, okay, so there's a Blighted Agent. So this game is over next turn if Cifka doesn't just straight up win. So we're going to have to see a lot of hotness happen. On the other, it's so counterintuitive. You're having to sit and Ghost Quarter your own lands, tapping them for mana first, filtering blue and colorless through Star to get enough white mana to cast all these spells. All kind of mind-blowing. What is not mind-blowing is attack with Blighted Agent, dump my hand.
Attack with Blighted Agent for 20 with not even dump your hand. It only takes 2 cards. There's only
Pardon
2
me.
cards to attack for 10 with the Blighted Agent.
The actuals still have all these. And we see Cifka on the other monitor just lean forward in his chair, sigh, and kind of start staring lasers through his hand. I think he realizes exactly how high stakes this turn is.
Now, does Cifka think that he has a turn after this turn? Or is he thinking, maybe I don't have a turn after this turn?
I don't think so. I mean, the agent is already attacking for 3 poison with both Hierarchs with absolutely no help. So, I mean, all he has to do is have 2 Giant Growths, and he's already cast a Sleight of Hand. And, I mean, the rest of the cards would be on the table right now. Very few cards in the Infect deck cost so much mana that they wouldn't have hit the battlefield if they were threats. So, I think if you're Cifka, you know that this turn is a key turn right now.
Now, an interesting card in Cifka's hand is Silence, which can play a role in when and how Chu can play those giant growth effects, because they have conditions onto being, +4/+4. Instead of being just +2/+2.
It's a really good point. The Might of Old Krosa needs to be cast as a sorcery to get +4/+4. So if a silence happens in the upkeep, he's only got to cast it for 2. Now he does have a sack land to turn on Groundswell, that Misty Rainforest, so he can still get landfall if he needs to on his upkeep in response to silence.
Right.
But it does make it a little bit more challenging.
Exactly. So we see we just have some shuffling from the activation of getting Hallowed Fountain for Cifka, and it looks like he's going for it.
Ghost Court. Yeah. I think he's going to try to end the game this turn. See another island. We've got the second. We've got 2 white mana if we need it from Chromatic Star and Hallowed Fountain. The second Sunrise would return 3 lands to the graveyard this turn, netting a ton of mana. So Cifka has the tools to go off this turn, or at least try, if that's what he wants to do.
And I think he's going to try. He's going to make white mana. Draw a card, and he gets another Silence. He only plays 2 in his deck, but he has them both in his hand. Draws a 3rd card off for Conjurer's Bauble.
Now, does he have to target a card with Conjurer's Bauble, or is it up to 1?
I'm pretty sure it's up to 1.
Interesting.
I think it was designed so that you could also just use it to cantrip without being, pigeonholed and having a target.
Interestingly, Chu not sacrificing his Misty Rainforest in response to get an extra land. That is how that works, right?
You would get an extra land from the Misty Rainforest.
Yeah, it may not matter all that much, but...
So there's a Sleight of Hand. Again, we see a Chromatic Sphere and a Sleight of Hand. Looks like Chromatic Sphere goes to the bottom.
All right, we're going to take another Slight. Or no, we're going to take the Chromatic Sphere.
Oh, we took the Chromatic Sphere.
He's got a Faith's Reward, so he can bring all of the cards in his graveyard back right now. I think he's just got to figure out what the best way to do that is.
Well, being able to get a land with Ghost Quarter and then get the Ghost Quarter and the land back with the second Sunrise or Faith's Reward is going to be able to net on the mana and the Chromatic Stars and Conjurer's Baubles and Chromatic Spheres. He's going to draw the cards, hopefully, that he needs to keep going.
So I think he's going to cast Silence on Kelvin's upkeep. The thing is, he didn't have a Lotus Bloom, so all of the mana, he was getting a lot of card advantage off the first, second Sunrise and potentially the Faith's Reward, but he didn't have enough mana to really get ahead because of that. He needed a Lotus Bloom to sort of start chaining rituals effects. So I think he just said go and is looking to Silence, and Kelvin might have him right here.
Yep, that's what he's going for right now.
So we do see that Silence. Kelvin reads it. He's got to respond with his hand right here. I mean, this game is over if he does.
He needs to get landfall by using Misty Rainforest, which he's going to do, and then just play all of his spells.
Yeah, it's funny to watch the Infect deck. It sort of plays out like Star City Black's Storm deck. I mean, just kind of nothing happens for a long time, and then all of a sudden they just cast everything in their hand. The game's over.
Right. Now, if Cifka had another white mana open, he could use his second Silence in response to the Misty Rainforest.
That's a really good point.
To turn off the landfall.
A lot of cards getting read right now, whether they're Combat Tricks from Time Spiral Block or Weird Instance.
And Weird Instance are what happened there as Cifka concedes to Chu game 1 because of Grousewells.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the hand you want. He ends up finding an Infect card. He's got a lot of search to do it, and attacks for something like, I think, what was it, 2, 4, 8, 11 poison.
11 poison, that's 1 more than you actually need. Overachiever,
That's
Kelvin
exactly
Chu.
right.
So we have a couple of updates from the floor. We have Pedro Carvalho up 1 game over David Shakarazaz. And we have Yuya Watanabe up 1 game over Zoltan Tapati.
All right.
These guys are playing super fast. Dak Faden is the greatest thief in the multiverse. Follow his adventures in the Magic the Gathering comic produced by IDW. A special promo card unique to the IDW comic series comes in each issue. Find out more about these comics at wizards.com/magic merchandise.
All right, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the sideboarding here. It's, if you're Cifka, you might bring in Grape Shot just so you can kill a Blighted Agent. I don't know how good that is, but it would have been good that game.
Well, I think Grape Shot could be good just to kill anything.
Yeah, sure.
Because
for sure.
It doesn't matter that the creature is unblockable.
Right.
All creatures are unblockable against the second breakfast deck.
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely no creatures in Stanislav decks. Not a single one. So, the Blighted Agent, just kind of a worse Glistener Elf.
Yeah,
in this
exactly.
matchup. But yeah, so I might bring in Grape Shot just for value. Also, you have to expect they have some sort of hate card with Echoing Truth. So I think that's what you bring in.
Yeah, and here we go. We're going to take a look at Second Sunrise because, we've been talking about this deck and we've been watching it tear through the feature match arena, and this is really the card that makes the deck possible. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Second Sunrise?
Well, the way this deck works, and it's really hard to understand, but basically it uses lands that enter the graveyard, coupled with 1-mana artifacts that draw you a card and make mana and go to the graveyard. So you cast a bunch of those, you use them all, you kind of refill your hand, not a lot's happened. But when you cast Second Sunrise for just 3 mana, you get all of that back. That can include Ghost Quarters, Misty Rainforest, Scalding Tarns that have entered the battlefield this turn, lands of your own that you targeted with Ghost Quarter, as well as Lotus Bloom, Conjurer's Bauble, Chromatic Star, Chromatic Sphere. So the first one you cast nets you something around like 3-4 mana and 3 or 4 cards, but every one you draw successively from there, especially if you have a Lotus Bloom, just grows and grows and grows. So this entire deck based around Second Sunrise and being able to capitalize on it.
Right, and obviously Faith's Reward, which does something very similar. It's essentially the same card, except it doesn't affect both players.
Right.
It's just you who gets the benefits of it's Second Sunrise for me.
Right, and theoretically it affects permanents as opposed to artifact, creatures, enchantments, and lands. So if a Planeswalker dies, you can get it back with Faith's Reward. Basically the only difference.
Exactly. So so you're Kelvin Chu, you're up against, everyone's talking about Cifka and his awesome deck, and you just,
right,
effectively 20'd him or,
right,
11'd him with poison. So you're feeling good. You're looking at your sideboard. What are you bringing in?
I think you're going to bring in Negate and Spell Pierce right here. I mean, Cifka's deck doesn't work without Second Sunrise or Faith's Reward. And you've got some redundant giant growth effects. Your rankers aren't really too awesome right here, so I think you bring in Pierce and Negate and just cut some of the giant growth. You're not really in a hurry if you have Disruption. You kind of just want to counter the spells that matter here.
Now, I'm watching some shuffling going on here, and I did see a blue card, so that looked like a Negate. It looks like Chu's on the same plan. Oh, no. It was actually Equine Truth, because that was Cifka's deck that was being shuffled. So Equine Truth has been brought in by Cifka to try to counter a bunch of pump spells.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Echoing Truth can just target a creature, and all of those pump spells are for naught. Also, he's got 4 copies in the sideboard. He's bringing it in basically to try and dodge just any hate card that he might see. Exactly.
So, and we're off to the races, and there is a suspended Lotus Bloom.
Another nightmare of playing this deck is just figuring out how to sequence your lands. It's really hard to tell, when you should lead with Ghost Quarter versus when you should do anything else.
It gets a lot easier if you have Elsewhere Flask in your hand. And then you just don't care. We can figure it out later.
That's a good point. So we see Misty getting cracked again on the first turn. Breeding Pool entering the battlefield untapped. Wonder if it's another Noble Hierarch like we saw in the first game, or one of the Glistener Elves that's kind of doing a good Blighted Agent impression.
Can't wait to find out. Looks like it's a Glistener Elf.
Okay, so we see Might of Old, Krosa, and at least one other pump spell. That's a Noble Hierarch,
which is also
kind of a pump spell. So
again,
threatening lethal in the next couple of turns if we see Inkmoth Hierarch attack. All we need is one other pump spell, and that can, again, end the game as soon as turn 3.
Second Lotus Bloom being suspended for Cifka, and hasn't played a second land yet. He has a lot of choices. Looks like Hollow Fountain, untapped, and pass the turn. So, and leaving up mana for Equine Truth.
Right, exactly. And very little opportunity cost to playing Hallowed Fountain untapped. Again, Kelvin's deck basically incapable of winning with damage, so you're not going to really miss the 2 life points.
Exactly. So, Kelvin Chu sees that there's a Hollow Fountain untapped.
Right.
And no spell was played.
For sure.
Wow. Do you think he smells what's coming?
I think so. I mean, I think you have to play conservative here. Even if he's bluffing, like, you're not really... I've heard that that
Tell me what you've heard.
Cifka is one before his Lotus Blooms that came into play. But with 2 of them suspended, I think you think, if you're Chu, that you've at least got one more turn. So I think you just play the Noble Hierarch here, or Serum Visions first. Obviously, you want to cast your card drawing spells first. You cast Serum Visions, you play Noble Hierarch, you attack for 2, and then you set up the win next turn. Remember, he's got 4 copies of Vines of Vastwood that can beat even an Echoing Truth, if that's what's ahead.
All right, so the Serum Visions yielded him another land, which looks like an Overgrown Tomb, and 2 cards went to the bottom, a Blighted Agent and another land.
All right.
So Noble Hierarch hits the battlefield, and attack with the Glisten Arrow, plus the Exalted trigger, means that's a 2/2 infect creature.
That's exactly right. It's probably a Verdant Catacombs, Overgrown Tomb, actually not even in the deck, although
Oh, really?
it was in our last deck.
It actually looks like
Really?
the new art for Overgrown Tomb.
Maybe it is. I
actually
It's
don't
something.
see. I don't see it in the deck
It's
either.
some land.
So maybe it must not be it.
It's probably not a spell.
It's probably not.
So all right. So we see the. All right. What? Okay. So Echoing Truth.
Echoing Truth happened. That's what happened.
All right. So even though there was no pump spell, Cifka's saying, all right, I need all the time I can get. I'm just going to get that guy out of there. And without an Inkmoth Nexus on the battlefield, it'll be at least 2 turns before Chu can attack with an infect creature.
Exactly, and I'm pretty sure the fact that Noble Hierarch came down and there was no more mana available for Chu played some role in deciding to Echoing Truth the creature at that time.
Absolutely. Okay,
No?
so
Glistener
all right.
Elf and a land for Chu.
Noble Hierarch staying back, no attacks.
Not this time. He's not as frisky as he was the last game.
For sure. So just a lot of land in Chu's hand. I didn't really see what he did with the Serum Visions, but presumably he put cards back. No disruption, although he's competently representing at least a negate or a pierce or something, but it can't be too hard for Cifka to go off this turn, although his size says he may not have any way to draw cards.
So Lotus Bloom comes off a suspend for Cifka, and it looks like he is going to go off to the races, because you want to know how I know?
How's that?
Because you usually don't Ghost Quarter your own land unless unless it's for value, as we say it,
Now,
as we call it.
It is hard to imagine a better negate than the one that would hit the first face reward right now.
It reminds me of back in my day.
Oh, yeah.
Where you would harrow and only have 1 green source, and then you accidentally sack the green source.
Oh, no.
And then it gets countered by any counter spell.
So rough. I remember disrupting a fair amount of harrows back in the day, both in the same set. All right, so Chromatic Sphere. I mean, if you're Chu,
one white band
you know something's coming up.
Well, you just kind of sit and wait, especially since he doesn't really have a way to interact. So he's kind of just hoping that Cifka overthinks it with his 2 mana open.
Right. All right. So we see the Serum Visions, kind of exactly what Cifka needed, just more ways to draw cards. There's another Lotus Bloom there. Elsewhere Flask, really good right now. We have to expect another Sunrise to happen. So yeah, he's keeping the Elsewhere Flask, putting the other card on the bottom. We're about to see, I believe, a Faith's Reward for all these permanents. It's possible it might just be second Sunrise. Who knows?
It could be either. Cifka has the option of one or the other.
So you probably just play the cheaper one right now, right?
You know what? Let's let the master do it. So we're going with the cheap one, second Sunrise first.
Playing around Spell Pierce. Who knows if that was the intention, but certainly in practice, that's exactly what happened.
So back comes the Lotus Bloom and the Chromatic Sphere, and look at all those land.
White.
Knowing how good Cifka is, that probably was the intention. So we see a ton of land in play right now. Cifka now just needing to cast more card drawing spells, and very soon it's probably going to be Elementary.
2 blue.
So he has 2 blue, and he's going to use Ghost Quarter to destroy those land again. So we're probably going to see that Fate's Reward pretty soon.
All right, so we might be sitting here for a little while.
Yeah, I guess we should still say everything that's going on. I don't know. I mean, I often get caught up in watching a combo deck go off, similar to, Chu, sitting next, across from the opponent, just kind of watching.
Right.
I get in that mode too. I put my hands under my chin and, I'm staring intently into the screen.
All right,
But
so
stay focused.
more Ghost Quarters happening. Land's getting thinned out of the deck. Not very many basics left. But I mean, certainly we see a couple.
Fontaine when it comes from sunrise. Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
So Cifka
Oh.
taking 2 more
Yeah.
damage because of the Hallowed Fountain being untapped. Getting a planes now.
Right. And he's running low on basics. We've actually, the game that Brian David Marshall and I watched, he didn't have any more basics after a while. You know, he sacrificed his ghost quarters and some land and looked for his basics, and there's just nothing.
Right, and a concept people talk about a lot is thinning your deck, you know, getting all the lands out. But when you get this many out, it does mean your card drawing spells much more likely to find, you know, real spells as opposed to just redundant lands.
Exactly. So elsewhere, Flask comes down. He draws a card. He draws a land, even though he didn't have that many left in his deck. He had at least that one.
All right.
Sacks the Lotus Bloom
Islands.
for some type of mana. Sacrifice the Elsewhere Flask just so they goes to the graveyard mostly. Probably changing them all to planes.
I think he said, or which one did he say? He said it, but I couldn't hear what he said.
Yeah.
Kind of elementary, I guess. We're going to have a lot of Lotus Blooms. We're going to have a lot of Chromatic Stars. The Elsewhere Flask is going to be right back, so he's going to get the mana he needs. All right, and a big face reward right here. And Kelvin Shoes just saying, all right, you're doing pretty good right now, but show me that you got it. Only drawing 2 cards.
Right. Everyone wants to see that you can actually win with your combo deck.
Right.
You can't just give the game away.
So the Elsewhere Flask trigger, the card drawing trigger on the stack, with all of that happening, Cifka is going to get even more lands out of his deck. And again, with only 2 card drawing spells, Chu very much in this game. Cifka absolutely, he needs to find some Conjurer's Baubles and some Chromatic Stars fast.
Exactly. This is as close as we've seen Cifka come to being in danger of fizzling, as we call it, where when your big turn combo deck, instead of
Same mana. Yes.
achieving a win condition after his long turn, just goes back to a neutral state in the game.
So,
there's the Elsewhere Flask. He gets to draw at least 1 card.
All right, so we see Conjurer's Bauble right here. So I would expect that the next Sunrise or the next face reward is going to be the actual game over, but Cifka drawing 1 card at a time, really trying to make this happen.
I think is this the last card that Cifka gets to draw from his hand? And what cards he has? I think there might be a Chromatic Sphere in his hand.
Yeah, I think he's got a sphere, so we're seeing he put a face reward back. Now Ghost quartering himself, not getting another land, but just wanted the shuffle, wanted to have access to that Faith's reward as an additional card to draw. So a huge cantrip right now. This might be Cifka's last draw step, and we might see him fizzle.
White.
Yeah, this is it. This has to be a second Sunrise or draw card, and it was neither. It was a Misty Rainforest.
Okay, so he's thinning his deck out a little bit more. Does he have 1 more card draw in his hand?
He must have 1 more. He had
wow.
he had the face reward already.
All right. Well, in that case, game might be over.
White.
Possibly, yes. Speaking of games being over, Yuya Watanabe wins 2-0 over
Islands.
Zoltan Tapani.
Okay, so yeah, just getting things out of the way, making everything islands, face reward happening, the entire graveyard coming back. This is going to be a lot of cards.
So 7 land coming to play, 8 land coming to play, and we got 2 Chromatic Spheres, a Conjurer's Bauble, 2
Destroy on the
Elsewhere
stack.
Flasks, which have draw triggers on the stack, Lotus Bloom for 3 more mana, and we are going to Conjurer's Bauble in response to put a second Sunrise on the bottom of the deck.
Yeah, exactly.
And we draw a white card, which usually means face reward, and it looks like a face reward. So we are still going.
Huh, what did he draw that off of? Was it off the Chromatic Star? Or no, the Conjurer's Bauble.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Well, no, these draws were from, that draw was from the Conjurer's Bauble. And I think we still have the Elsewhere Flash draws.
No, I think he drew them. I think, yeah, but I mean, this game really is over for all intents and purposes.
White.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And there's another second Sunrise. So we currently have a second Sunrise and a Fate's Reward in Cifka's hand.
And you see,
Plenty of mana, plenty of cards to be drawn.
you see Cifka speeding up the pace of play. He's like, all right, I know I've got this. We just need to make this happen so I can win this game within the time
Islands.
limit.
Yeah.
Is this like when you're on
Rewind.
Magic Online and you hear and you see the timer on your opponent's ticking down, and instead of conceding, you just click OK for everything?
You like can't F6. You don't want to let him know that you don't have anything. Again, all these permanents coming right back onto the battlefield. The Ghost Quarters targeting zone
Just
lands
throw
not
on a
really
stack.
doing much, just floating some lands. Triggers on the stack, going to try and thin the deck out a little more, add yet another face reward or another cantrip there. Kind of a cursory shuffle, not really worried about it.
Well, we got to increase the percentages, and maybe somebody out there can do the math for us. But how much are we increasing our percentages by shuffling that one second sunrise back into the deck?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
It's greater than 0, which is all that matters.
Okay, so he's got a second sunrise. He's got, I think, another face reward. I mean, he's got as many mana as he needs. And we're going to see a reshape right now, maybe, for another Lotus Bloom, or is he going to go ahead and just get the Pirate Spellbomb and say, all right, let's get through?
Well, getting the Pirate Spellbomb doesn't necessarily, you still have to loop
I can
through
move
your
my
deck.
sideboard.
As long as you keep your sideboard and all the other cards separate.
So as long as, I think reshape should get you more cards into your hand, like something to draw an additional card.
So you see Cifka looking at his sideboard, I think, and making sure he still has a kill condition. And we see that he does, in fact, have a Spellbomb there. Now, the way this deck works, you have to actually deplete all of the cards in your deck. So Conjurer's Bauble puts Pyrite Spellbomb as your last card. You use it to deal 2 damage and draw it again off the Conjurer's Bauble after you have presumably an unbounded amount of mana by doing a similar loop with something like a Lotus Bloom or a Conjurer.
Well, I think now the loop that this deck uses is to loop seconds. You constantly put second sunrise on the bottom of your deck with Conjurer's Bauble, and the Conjurer's Bauble comes back, and the Pirate Spellbomb comes back.
Oh, gotcha,
and then
gotcha. And you draw the second sunrise, and you generate enough mana based on just the rest of your lands.
Exactly.
All right, so deck's evolved a little bit from when you're using eggs.
Yeah, two different options. Multiple routes to the victory, or routes, or whatever you'd like to call it.
Ways to win the game.
Ways to win the game. That sounds like a new feature.
All right, so in just each iteration we go through this, we draw a lot of cards, we thin the deck out, he just has to get through each one of these. And he's not going to run out of face rewards because, he keeps putting them back with the Conjurer's Bauble.
Exactly.
And they keep getting shuffled in, so they're not just sitting there hopeless on the bottom.
Yep, and all of these effects are being, created by artifacts and enchantments, lands, or creatures. So they all come back when you sacrifice them from your graveyard, thanks to face reward and the second sunrise. So that's how we get to do everything over and over and over and over again.
That's exactly right. And we're getting down to almost no cards. We see 2 Serum Visions in hand. A Chromatic Star being used with the floating mana. Again, we're just trying to get through all this at this point.
Right now, Cifka has 5 second sunrise effects in his hand. So we're going to be able to do that as many times as we want. And we're definitely just going through the motions. Yeah, and Chu just wants to see Cifka earn this.
And again, to spell it out crystal clear, Lotus Bloom lets you cast Second Sunrise essentially for free because the Lotus Bloom comes back into play untapped. You sack it for 3 white mana, you cast Second Sunrise, it comes into play untapped.
Right.
So once you get your deck empty and you can chain you use your Conjurer's Bauble to draw the Second Sunrise over and over again, you can literally loop it as many times as you want to, using your lands and your Ghost Quarters to net additional mana every time.
Exactly, and right now we actually get to see Pyrite Spellbomb deal 2 damage, where this is the win condition here. Pyrite Spellbomb, 2 damage at a time for 20 damage. So and this is, we're just seeing this happen. And it looks like we're actually going to go through the loop. We're going through the entire loop. Kelvin Chu is at 14 thanks to 1 Pyrite Spellbomb activation this turn. All right, so you got to do it 7 more times. And I actually think Cifka has 6 or 7 second sunrise effects in his hand. Yeah, just cast them all for your hand. Don't even worry about looping anything. Right. We just have them all. Now, at this point, pretty clear that there's no negate or anything like that Chu has. No spell pierce. Cifka knows he doesn't really have to play around anything, but he does need to make sure he doesn't mess up the operations. A lot of people concede at this point, but you're under no obligation to help your opponent out when they're playing a tricky deck. So. Yeah, especially a deck where it needs to get its library down to almost nothing. Yeah, and exactly. It's drawing cards all the time. Right. If you do things wrong, you might just deck yourself unintentionally. Yeah. Do you know anybody who's ever done
I was going to
anything
say,
like
I myself have in fact done that
You're right.
at Pro Tour Berlin. The pressure is on, and you just do something careless, and you lose instead of win. So definitely can testify that this happens.
So there's one of the. Okay, so Kevin Chu says, I just need to see one more second sunrise, and let's go to game 3.
All right, so that's what happened.
And while that one turn was going on, I have 2 more results for
What
you.
happened during that single turn of Magic, Rashad?
Well, during that turn, it looks like Eduardo Salzgelik wins 2-1 or 2-0 over Willie Edo. And we already told you that Yuya Watanabe won 2-0 over Zoltan Tapani. Pedro Carvalho wins 2-0 over David Shekarazaz.
All right, so this is our last feature match.
This is it. This is the last one.
All right, I mean, this is history right here. Stanislav Cifka could become the second player ever to go undefeated at the Swiss rounds of Pro Tour. Is it second or third? I think for this many rounds, I thought I remember Ryan Fuller doing something comparable way back in the day. But in any case, a very short list of people capable of sweeping the Swiss at a Pro Tour.
We'd like to thank Gaming Etc. for being an official card retailer here at Pro Tour Return to Ravnica. Gaming Etc. is one of the premier destinations on the internet for all things Magic. For more information, visit gamingetc.com.
All right. So Cifka is sitting there, right? You know, just intently focused, huge stakes. Cifka, historic streak for Chu, could get his first Pro Tour top 8, really show that he belongs on this stage. So, you know, huge stakes. The players kind of have sideboarded already. They're intensely focused, and they know what they need to do.
So we looked at Second Sunrise before, and I mentioned that Face Reward is pretty similar, but we're going to put Face Reward up on the screen so that we can actually see the difference. I actually wish we could have like a little side-by-side comparison, but here we go. Face Reward costs 1 more colorless, so it's got to be better, right? So I think you have some personal insight on this card.
There's a non-zero chance I made this card. I don't really. It's hard to keep up with. Possible was on the design team anyway. I was the lead developer of Magic 2013. So Face Reward, really important card to me. It was very popular in our internal testing, more or less as a way to avoid Wrath of God type effects in more casual games. You know, your opponent blows up your creatures, you just cast it in response and get them all back. But it can also do totally degenerate things with Lotus Bloom. Now, the differences between this and Second Sunrise are that this does not give your opponent their permanents back. Now, when you're not killing their things, that doesn't come up too much, but in a match like this, a very key interaction could be if Chu only has 1 Misty Rainforest open or 1 Scalding Tarn open, he can use that in response, get a land, get his Misty back, and have 2 mana up for negate for the second copy of a Second Sunrise or Face Reward type effect. So Second Sunrise has a very real drawback that Face Reward does not have. As we mentioned, Face Reward also includes all permanent cards, doesn't just spell them out. So if at any point your Planeswalker dies on the turn you want to cast this, maybe you're just the greediest, you ultimate it, and want a Planeswalker back, you can certainly do that with a Face Reward.
And actual fun fact that I did not know, Ironworks.
Oh, yeah.
Card Clan Ironworks was slated to be in the Magic.
So I really liked Card Clan Ironworks, and we try to do cards for sets that are about to rotate out. Mirrodin Block almost rotated out, so I wanted to put an artifact enabler in the set that would kind of help you do some fun stuff with your Scars and Mirrodin cards for 3 months. Unfortunately, Card Clan Ironworks and Face Reward was totally degenerate, so we had to cut Card Clan Ironworks for Clock of Omens, I think became that slot. So some cool things you can do with Clock of Omens too, but
similar cards, air quotes.
Hey man, they're 4-mana artifacts that say artifacts on them.
And really, that's all that there is to it. All right, so here we go. Game 3. Looks like we don't have a mulligan from Chu, and Cifka has a reasonable hand. He's probably going to keep that.
All right, so we see a Groundswell, Double Glistener Elf, Might of Old Croza, and Spell Pierce from Chu's hand. I believe this could be as early as a turn 3 kill. You've got turn 1 Glistener Elf, turn 2 Glistener Elf, keep up Spell Pierce, turn 3 attack, play your Giant Growth. So Kelvin Chu's hand, very scripted out right now. Cifka, on the other end, looking a little more dubious. He has Star, Sphere, Conjurer's Bauble, Echoing Truth, Conjurer's Bauble. On the other hand, only 1 land. So a little bit risky for Cifka.
Yeah, there are a lot of formats where with that many cantrips, when we say cantrips, cards that you play and they draw you a new card, you would keep a 1-land hand.
Right.
But when you're up against a deck that on turn 2 or turn 3 can deal you lethal damage, you might not want to put all your eggs in the extra card basket.
Exactly, and the other big drawback to that is you can't just throw away your Chromatic Spheres or Stars trying to draw lands. You need those to enter the battlefield the turn you're going to go off, the turn you're casting Second Sunrise. So you can't really afford to just cycle through those to try and find your extra land.
All right, so Cifka's going to go down to 6.
All right, so yeah, he's going for a 6-card hand. I mean, it's hard for me to tell exactly what you want in an opening hand. I feel like the script you want to play is you want to spend your first and second turn deploying Stars and Spheres to the battlefield, casting your sleight of hands to set up, and maybe if you're lucky, suspending a Lotus Bloom, although in this matchup, that may not even be fast enough. And then, around turn 4, turn 3, if you need to, you set up Reshape Sunrise and really try to win from there. But in order to do all of that, you need lands.
Right. And this is game 3, a lot on the line for both players.
Yeah.
Chu is trying to get himself into the top 8, which Cifka has already solidified himself with a 15-0 start, but he wants his name included in history. He wants to go undefeated at this Pro Tour.
I will say, if you're Chu right now, you've got to be pretty confident. Your opponent's mulliganing. You have a turn 3 kill with Disruption up. I mean, it's hard to look for a more perfect 7 cards than Chu is drawn right now.
Exactly. So now we're going to get to see what the 6 is for Cifka.
All right.
We got 3 lands, Second Sunrise, and a Face Reward.
Yep.
Only 1 Chromatic Sphere, but there's also the 2 land that Cifka has, 2 of the 3 land lands go to the graveyard. So there's some value to those lands with the Second Sunrise.
Right, exactly. I mean, Ghost Quarter, Scalding Tarn, Misty Reinforced, key to the functioning of the second breakfast deck. I mean, again, much like Lotus Bloom, it just allows you to cast your card for free.
All right, so a turn 1 Glistener Elf for Chu.
Chu, of course, going down to 17 life. Not that that matters a whole lot in this matchup.
Not a whole lot.
All right, wow, Gataxian Pro from Chu. So Chu's going to know exactly what he has to work with. And when you have a hand as strong as his right now, having perfect information has got to be exactly what you're looking for in this situation.
Exactly. You actually know when is the best time to keep that 1 blue mana on.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, very good in concert with that Spell Pierce.
And so we get a second breeding pool untapped. So Kelvin's just going to go down to 14.
And again, his life total being largely irrelevant, why not just get the dual lands, make sure that you can cast your spells.
Wait, here, we have a lot of damage coming our way.
Oh wait, is this just going to be game right here?
This is 5. This is Groundswell, attack for 5. That's 5 poison for Cifka.
Okay.
And we have a blue left open for Spell Pierce.
All right, so he's not bothering to cast a second Glistener Elf. I thought he was going to cast a second Elf and then try and win all on the 3rd turn. Instead, what he's doing, casting his Giant Growths 1 at a time. Next turn, setting up the Might of Old Croza, keeping Spell Pierce up more or less perpetually, and also saving the Gataxian Probe to make sure he has perfect information next turn.
Exactly. Cifka definitely knows something's awry. He feels that.
Yeah, so
it's not feeling good. That's the face of a man that might not go 15-1 in his head.
Right.
I mean, 16-0 in his head.
He's asking about cards. Yeah, it's funny the narrative we constructed. Acting as though it's a disappointment to go 15-1 at a Pro Tour. I mean, and in one sense it really is. But in another, you're still finishing the top of the standings with over 2 rounds on your nearest competitor. So can't be too disappointed either way.
Yep, and there's the 3rd land and the Gataxian Probe to get that perfect information. And Chu sees it the closest clear.
Yeah. And, yep, sorcery speed, Might of Old Krosa. Going to attack for the full 10. And
5 more poison. We crack a fetch land. And is there a card off the screen that we just don't know about?
he can draw a card with Chromatic Sphere and potentially draw a Echoing Truth. But what he doesn't know is that Chu has the Spell Pierce to render most of that irrelevant.
All right, so let's just see what happens.
Kind of a heartbreaker if you do top deck it on your 1 out and your opponent's just like, nah, dog.
Had it. So we draw a card, and there's an Elsewhere Flash. That's not going to do it. Chu does it. Chu takes this match 2-1. Most likely, top 8 berth.
Yeah, we expect him to be playing for a top 8. Of course, you never know exactly how the numbers are going to work out, but what this should mean is that Stanislav Cifka and Kelvin Chu both playing in the top 8 of Pro Tour Return to Ravnica.
All right, back in the booth, Rashad Miller, Zach Hill. 16 rounds of Return to Ravnica tournament here. And
it's a lot of magic.
Yeah, we didn't get to see the 16-0 from Cifka, but Chu made a great play.
Right.
Great series of play, played that last game perfectly, and he's going to be playing the top 8.
Yeah, exactly. A historic moment for Kelvin Chu, and Cifka, can't be too heartbroken, like I said, over 15-1. So all I'm waiting for is to hear who else has made it.
Oh, do we really need to know anyone else? I just want to see that matchup over and over and over again. It's actually stunning, especially since this deck is the only one that's beaten the second breakfast deck.
Well, and it is basically the dream matchup for Infect. You're not getting any creatures killed, and you're not have to worry about any blockers. So it kind of, makes sense.
All right, so let's just go back to the news deck. Let them finish out the day. We're done. Let's see what those guys have to say.